Welcome to KBA's Vendor Viewpoint podcast, where we bring together Kentucky bankers and the industry's top vendor solutions to discuss important topics that affect your bank. This is Selena Parrish, KBA Director of Membership, Products, and Services. Today, we are featuring KBA-endorsed Abrigo. Abrigo is at the forefront of helping community financial institutions manage risk and drive growth with cutting-edge technology and expertise. From compliance and fraud prevention to lending solutions, Abrigo provides innovative tools and insights that empower institutions to succeed in an ever-evolving financial landscape. With me today is Neekis Hammond, Director of Advisory Services at Abrigo. Neekis, thank you so much for being with us today for the podcast. Tell our audience all about your role with Abrigo.
Yeah, hi, Selena. Thank you for inviting us to the podcast. Abrigo's been up to a lot. We do BSA, AML work. We touch on fraud, loan origination systems. That includes things like decisioning and small business automation. CECL, which many of you have probably heard from us on before. We've got a lot of customers in Kentucky that we solve CECL for. Stress testing, ALM, and even valuation work. A lot of folks don't know that we're one of the largest providers of valuation services. And my role at Abrigo does touch a lot of that. I lead our advisory services practice, and we perform these services in behalf of our customers. And I would say that is a unique aspect of this technology company, is that we have about 75 individuals that have worked in banks and in the space and can be kind of your advocate internally in how to use the software as designed.
Certainly, and that's where I think it's so great that everything that Abrigo does is focused on helping our members drive growth and just all the innovative technology that you all are introducing to the industry. So can you give us an update on what you're doing with data? Because as I'm out on the road visiting with KBA member banks, so many of them talk about being at the top of the forefront of collecting data on their customers. And how is Abrigo helping community banks do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And here's a good example. I think you've got 120, 125 member banks in Kentucky.
Yes.
And that ranges from maybe as small as 25 million to 9 billion. And
it sure does.
And some of those institutions, they can look at their data all day long and not have enough observations to glean meaningful insights from. And a lot of the data sets that are available in the marketplace today are kind of product of maybe securitized debt. And you're trying to draw analogies from these, securities that aren't analogous to the real estate loans that you're underwriting or whatever loans they might be. And you're trying to intuit the gap there, the mental gap between a securities data point and your own. And so where our data sets are unique and can help these institutions is that they are community banks. They're banks like your member banks. And we're aggregating that data and we're letting them compete with the bigger banks that have that statistical relevancy, that they're mining that data and they have enough to glean insights from. And providing that data back to community banks is one way that we believe we're helping to fulfill that mission of helping, community banks win and compete in this space. So, Selena, we're working with data. One of the unique data sets is this origination underwriting data, like being able to see what rates have been originated in maybe a trailing 24-week time frame.
That's fascinating. So if I'm a bank relationship manager, how is that technology best used by me? Just give us a scenario of how a relationship manager at a bank could benefit from Abrigo's benchmarks.
That's let's walk through that scenario. So your relationship manager, you've got a renewal coming up and you're renewing a commercial real estate loan. the rates have increased since the last time you've worked with this borrower.
Mhm.
So you're coming to them with a new interest rate. Wouldn't it be helpful to come to with along with that new interest rate to say, here are all of the loans originated in the state of Kentucky, or here's the average interest rate in the state of Kentucky over the last 24 weeks that have been originated within this dollar band with
Yeah.
this maturity structure. So you're aware as a relationship manager of what's happening in the state. And now you're giving information to your borrower that indicates to them like where they are in relative terms. And you can have a meaningful dialogue about that. And you're building trust, you're building that relationship. And both parties are eyes wide open at that point.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. So, where does all this data come from, and how do you validate for the accuracy of the data?
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes this data set interesting is that it's being used by banks. So we mentioned some of those services that we're providing, BSA, AML services. There's controls around that. That data has to be accurate. Allowance, that's hitting financial statements. That data has to be accurate. The data that's being underwritten and approved and going into credit memos, that has to be accurate. And so
Sure.
there's this kind of front end control on the data because of the use cases of that data that
Yeah.
kind of provides a natural control point. Likewise, there's a lot of different angles of the data being merged together. So you've got a wide foundation of different data types.
Okay. And then, just like you referenced, for chief credit officers, this sounds like an incredible tool that Abrigo is bringing to the banks.
Yeah, you're
So
right. Go ahead, Selena.
that's that. I just thought, can you give us a case scenario of how chief credit officers will take advantage of Abrigo's support?
Yeah, I mean, speaking specifically to this data set, I think that having this information, like again, origination rate data with certain bands that match up to the loan being approved. So in any approval setting, being able to say the loan that's up for approval, being able to match that with the data set and show trends of interest rates, for example, or trends of default rates of similar loans and know where you sit competitively and what you're giving up. You may go down to chase that loan or that deal, but at least you know what other institutions are originating at that dollar band, that kind of risk level, and that default level. So almost like a risk-based, risk-adjusted interest rate.
Sure. And that's where I think the data analytics definitely drive themselves to improve banks' efficiencies and everything for the profitability side of the bank. And that speaks to that. And then if I'm sitting at the bank and I'm a chief financial officer, how would a chief financial officer use this data?
Yeah, one of the theories here is, and one of the questions worth asking, the listeners is, it's rhetorical. I'd love to talk to the listeners too, but it's a rhetorical question. But what is the alternative right now? Where do you go to find community bank interest rate information in real time? There isn't, and that isn't a thing that you get the luxury of doing outside of one deal at a time. Did we win it? Did we lose it? This binary information. And a chief financial officer, much like the RM or the chief credit officer, has an interest in these rates, obviously. And one way that we're actively using this data is a chief financial officer. If you're public, you have to put exit price or fair value disclosures out every quarter. We can use this information to help supplement valuations, discount your loans by recent origination rates. So that the loans I have on balance sheet, how do they stack up against what I could get these loans for today? You can use it to make create profitability models. You can origination date match these loans up, for example, and see what were we originating last year? What was the market originating last year? What are we originating today? And what's the market originating today? And you can get useful insights there on how you set pricing, how you set rate sheets. especially in some of the more consumer and retail oriented portfolios where it's not really an underwriting decision. It's more of a rate sheet and profitability discussion. That's where these rates can really help, like that CFO and those retail managers and setting prices.
Oh, I can't imagine a bank not wanting it immediately. So can you talk through the implementation process for this solution for our members?
Yeah, sure thing. Our goal here was really to make this accessible, as accessible as possible and easy to buy. And so, the process is pretty easy. You contact Abrigo, you pay us some money, sub $5,000 currently, and we turn it on and you go. And that's really no integration required. It's not a long, laborious process. And we wanted to price it where it's kind of under a lot of decision thresholds. And so it's really easy to get your hands on. And then from there, you can, how you want to interact with the tool is kind of up to you. Let's say that you wanted to layer your data on top of these dashboards and see like if it was a line chart, for example, show your data in here relative to the state or the nation. Then you could choose to integrate. Then you could say, hey, we want to send you our file, or maybe you're already an Abrigo customer. You just want to turn that functionality on. That's kind of how you advance through your progression using this information. So there's a variety of ways you can use this information beyond just getting access to it. But Selena, answer your question more directly again. It's really easy to get access to this information. It's less expensive, and all it takes is a phone call or an email.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's going to be beneficial for banks of all asset size, or are you finding a certain asset size bank is more inclined to use this type of solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on, like, the market's interesting, like where you reside, what MSAs you reside in. I mean, thinking about your member banks, like if you're in those larger MSAs, you may want to be looking at, Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana data, right?
Right.
Or some combination, and being able to drill down into that is meaningful. If you're a smaller bank, maybe in the more central part of the state or the southern part of the state, maybe you want to stick to Kentucky data, and you can drill into that and just show Kentucky data. And the small institutions have a need for this data because they don't have large, robust data sets themselves or a lot of observations themselves. And the larger institutions, I think, they're looking to compete in these bigger markets where they may want some of that information outside their state, or they're looking to expand into new markets and they want to get some insights there.
Definitely. And that's where I've talked to several KB members who are looking at expanding outside and moving from Kentucky, maybe opening branches down in Tennessee and other states. And so it sounds like this solution would definitely give them some insights for expanding their footprint and growing in their markets.
Exactly. In some of those competitive markets, you may have institutions there that are kind of putting promotional rates out there, for lack of a better word, that you need to be aware of before you plan to expand into that space. And like, it's not currently in your data set. So being able to see like what's happening over there is important.
Sure. And inside the bank, which department do you find this solution sits in? Does it stay in the lending side of the bank, or how do you see it implemented when a bank signs on with Abrigo?
Well, to date, it's kind of been who we're closest to, right? Like who we're already working with and who we're closest to. But kind of like we talked about today, Selena, I mean, there's very good reasons the CFO is going to want this information.
Sure.
To help me understand what our current portfolio, how it is in relative terms, and analyzing a kind of a group of loans. And then, the relationship managers, the chief credit officer on the lending side are going to be interested for that growth aspect and decisioning aspects. And so I'd say, this principle of interest rates too is expanding horizontally, default information, allowance information, quantitative versus qualitative. So if the audience, the listeners take anything away from this, like, it is important for us to communicate that this origination rate data exists and this benchmark exists, and you can gain access to it. More importantly would be that data like this exists too, default data, allowance data for other stakeholders in the organizations, that go beyond just origination rates.
Sure. And then once the bank signs on with Abrigo, can multiple people then tap into it? Or is it just a license for one specific employee at the bank to pull the data?
Oh, that's a good question. And we should probably, I'll even add on to that. Like, how do you interact with it? What does it feel like to interact?
Sure.
So the way this thing is structured is to be an enterprise license that anyone can gain access to at the institution. It's
Okay.
also think of it as a live and interactive dashboard where you get to click on, drill into, expand, and get curious about. And so it's not just static data. Like, you get to choose your filters and you get to change them on the fly. So you don't have to premeditate what you want to see is a good way to frame it. You can interact with the data and compare and contrast different data sets.
Wow, that's so important now to have that kind of flexibility that you're bringing to the community banks. And for the listening audience, as far as if they're interested in seeing a demo, how long does a demo take for you to show someone the strength of this platform that you offer?
Yeah, it's pretty quick. I mean, getting a demonstration scheduled, that process is very lubricated at this point. So it's not difficult to get in contact with somebody at Abrigo and get a demonstration of this organized. The demonstration of itself can last less than 30 minutes.
Okay.
And like I said, that buying from the point in time that you want to purchase to having access to this information, it's a matter of us just turning it on and giving you a license. There's no middle step from purchasing to using.
So as far as internally, a technology officer having to do a lot of integration or anything, that is not needed.
It's not needed. You don't have to bother anybody else. You could just be an individual user at an institution and want this information and turn it on and start using it, and then sending links within your organization to use it as well.
Oh, that's great. And then does it generate reports? Like if they need reports to take to the board meetings or committee meetings, is that something that the platform will also provide?
Yeah, like the platform provides it. Like if you're just looking for this information, that's one way to interact with it. But if you want to, say, acquire the license of the platform this information sits on, then you can customize any type of report, have your data flowing in, and have different dashboards that you've created on your own that are saved that update automatically. And that's a neat premise, Selena, is that, this, to consider it an intro into this product that's meaningful and useful. Like, this data is interesting and can really make a difference in your organizations, and it doesn't require an integration. You may find that you like the platform it sits on and that you would like to expand that and bring it into your processes.
Okay.
Then you can license the broader tool and bring in your own data and start customizing these dashboards, customizing reports, and exporting information.
That's excellent.
So yeah, you can grow with us at a pace that you want, and works in your budget, works in what you need to do.
Okay. And so I think I heard you say earlier that to sign up with the Abrigo solution, it's $5,000. Is that what the cost is?
And I think we even have promotional pricing right now. It's something closer to 2. I think that's, I'm not on the sales team, Selena, so I think that is limited. The $2,000 offer is limited.
Okay.
But I believe we're pricing these benchmarks at roughly $5,000.
Okay. Well, that's great to know. And if listeners are interested, what is the best way for them to get in contact with Abrigo's team?
Yeah, I think I think a good way to get in contact with us is, many of you are customers of us already, and you may have a point of contact that we may refer to as a CSM.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can go to our website, request more information. We even, if you were to look for like Abrigo dashboards, there is a landing page for all this information on the web as well. So go to our website and look for dashboard information. You'd find that you'll also find out how to interact with us if you have questions on purchasing.
Wonderful. And I know since Abrigo is endorsed by KBA, listeners on KBA's website at kybanks.com, we also have Abrigo's services listed. So please reach out to us if there is anything we can do. And thank you so much, Neekis, for your time today. This has been excellent information for our audience. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Selena. Appreciate you.
It's great to have you with us and learning more about all the solutions that Abrigo has available for our member banks. And listening audience, thank you so much for being with us today for KBA Vendor Viewpoint. Until next time, this podcast is a wrap, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.